Chapter 1. Threads of Destiny, where two lonely souls collide. Part 1. The Power of Eternal Love. 3 years, 1,095 long, unbroken days. That's how long Max, a German shepherd, with a golden brown and black coat, sat quietly by his owner's grave. Through blazing summers and freezing winters, Max would appear each morning at 6 o'clock sharp, sitting upright beside the cold stone marked James Mitchell, Hero of Texas. Every day he'd gaze into the distance, his deep brown eyes reflecting a hope and longing no one could quite understand. People around Arlington Cemetery became familiar with this loyal figure. Some called Max the crazy dog, or the animal that won't let go. Others, moved by compassion, tried to coax him home, offering food and shelter. But Max always returned, no matter what anyone did. Once, an animal rescue team took Max away, but after just one night, he was back, steadfast, unmoved. Max's eyes never wavered at pity or curiosity. He didn't need sympathy or comfort. He only needed to be close to his master, even if it was just a piece of soul resting beneath the cold earth. For 3 years, Max became part of the cemetery's daily life, a living legend inspiring everyone who passed by. Some left flowers at the grave, others snapped photos and shared them online, touching millions of hearts. Yet no one truly understood why Max would not leave. Was it blind loyalty? Or was there something deeper, a promise, a wound that never healed, a miracle born of unconditional love? Then on the 1096th day, a stranger finally listened and understood what Max had been longing to say for 3 years. And so the mysteries began to unravel, and Max's story would finally be told, reaching deep into the heart of every listener. Part 2. James Mitchell, a young man from Texas, raised among golden wheat fields and endless skies, carried a silent loneliness from his earliest years. His father died in a truck accident when James was just 8. His mother, small but strong, shouldered every hardship, working 3 jobs to raise her only son. Each evening, as the last light touched the old porch, James would sit quietly, staring at the endless fields, his heart heavy with one question. Will anyone remember me when I'm gone? That question followed James through the years, always searching for something greater than himself, a place to belong, a true family. At school, he was always first to help his friends, but also the last to leave the football field, quietly picking up every stray ball. He was kind and hard-working, but his eyes always held a trace of sadness, a fear of being left behind. When he grew up, James joined the army. For him, it wasn't just duty, it was hope for a new home, a place where people stood together, sharing meals, fears, and dreams. It was a place where he believed he could be part of something meaningful and, most of all, never be alone again. During those first months of training, James stood out for his dedication, his team spirit, and his kindness. He quickly won the respect of his fellow soldiers, but deep in his eyes the sadness lingered. He always felt something was missing, a true friend to share everything with, a soul who could understand even the fears he couldn't name. On cold nights in the barracks, James would look up at the starry sky and wonder, is there someone out there waiting for me? That loneliness became his drive. He longed for a real friendship, an unbreakable bond, something he'd never truly known as a child. Little did he know, fate was quietly guiding him toward Max, a dog carrying his own pain and loneliness. Together they would write a story of friendship, sacrifice, and the miracle of unconditional love. Part 3. The Destined Meeting in Kandahar. On a scorching summer afternoon in 2018, the Kandahar base shimmered under the relentless sun. After weeks of grueling training, James Mitchell was finally brought to the section reserved for military dogs. His heart pounded with excitement and anxiety, not just for the mission ahead, but for meeting his new partner, Max. In one corner, Max sat silently, his grey and gold coat catching the desert light, his deep brown eyes staring into the distance. Unlike the other dogs who wagged their tails in greeting, Max remained perfectly still, simply watching, a warrior's gaze shaped by loss. His ears stood alert, his body tense, as if he'd built an invisible wall to protect himself from the world. James approached gently, his heart racing. He didn't reach out, but quietly sat beside Max, keeping a respectful distance. "Hello, Max," he whispered, his voice warm and calm, not forceful, not rushed. Max glanced at James, eyes wary, then looked away. Silence filled the air, broken only by the desert wind, carrying dust and the scent of war. James understood. Max didn't need pity, and he certainly didn't need anyone to fix his wounds. So James waited, telling Max stories of home in Texas, of golden wheat fields and lonely evenings. Gradually Max began to listen, his ears twitching, his eyes softening, as if he sensed a kindred spirit before him. After nearly an hour, Max slowly moved closer, his nose gently touching James's hand. That was the moment destiny unfolded. Two lonely souls, two wounded warriors, had found each other in the vast desert. From that moment, a remarkable friendship began, a friendship that would change both of their lives forever. Part 4. Max, from stray to destined friend. Far away from Texas, thousands of miles away, Max, a German shepherd, mix with golden brown and black fur, was struggling to survive as a homeless dog on the outskirts of Kabul. Max once had a home, Mr. Ahmed, the retired old teacher, and Mrs. Fatima, the gentle woman who always called him Habibi, her beloved. Every early morning, Max would wake up to her laughter and the scent of freshly baked bread filling the tiny kitchen. Those were peaceful days, days when Max knew for sure he belonged somewhere. But war spares no one. One bitterly cold night, the thunder of bombs tore through the darkness, and Max's little home was reduced to ashes in an instant. When Max awoke, all that remained around him was rubble, smoke, dust, and a chilling silence. Mr. Ahmed and Mrs. Fatima were gone forever. From that moment on, Max became a stray, wandering the streets and garbage dumps, hiding in dark corners just to survive each day. Those wild days taught Max absolute vigilance. He learned to distinguish the footsteps of friend from foe, how to dodge stray bullets, and how to read hunger and fear in the eyes of other wanderers. But the greatest pain was not hunger, cold, or wounds. It was utter loneliness. Max missed the gentle caresses, missed the loving call of his name, missed the feeling of safety as he curled up at his owner's feet each night. Though he grew tougher on the outside with each passing day, deep in those brown eyes still flickered a fragile glimmer of hope to be loved, to belong somewhere. Max didn't know that far away, James Mitchell was carrying the same loneliness in his heart. Two lost souls, two seemingly unrelated destinies, were both longing for the same thing, a true friend, an unconditional bond, a reason to believe that there was still magic in this world. And so, fate quietly began to weave its invisible threads, preparing for an encounter between Max and James that no one could have predicted, a meeting that would forever change the destinies of both and write a story that would touch millions of hearts to come. Chapter 2. Forged in Trust, the Birth of an Unbreakable Bond. Part 1. The Early Days of Hardship, Courage and Perseverance. Kandahar Base, August 2018. The desert sun scorched everything in its path, turning the base into a giant furnace. James Mitchell, a 22-year-old soldier from Texas, entered the K-9 training area, his heart pounding. He'd already heard about Max, a German shepherd mix with a painful past who'd lost 2 handlers during dangerous missions. Some soldiers whispered that Max was broken, no longer able to trust anyone. The first time James saw Max, the dog was curled up in the farthest corner of his kennel, his golden black fur caked with dust. Max's deep brown eyes didn't meet James's gaze. Instead, he stared off into the distance, haunted by ghosts only he could see. Whenever James tried to get closer, Max would instantly retreat, letting out a low growl, not threatening but almost pleading. "Please, don't make me trust again." The first days passed in tense silence. Max rejected all contact, wouldn't eat if James was nearby, and never made eye contact. Every morning, James patiently placed Max's food 2 meters away, then sat quietly, never forcing himself closer. He spoke softly about home, about the golden wheat fields of Texas, about his mother, Sarah, who always said, "Patience is the key to every heart." "Max," James would whisper, by the flickering light of the tent each night, "I know you're hurting. So am I. I'm scared of losing those I love too. But maybe, just maybe, we can get through this together." Slowly, Max began to notice. His ears perked up at the sound of James's gentle voice. Glances became more frequent. Each day, Max crept a little closer. Trust was flickering, fragile as a candle in the wind, but still burning. Part 2. Signs of Change, the Breakthrough Moment. On the 8th day at Kandahar, the air was thick with tension. Max was still the most distant dog in the unit, silent, watchful, his eyes clouded with an unreachable sadness. But in that quiet, among the pounding boots and the desert wind, something began to shift. During a bomb detection drill that morning, Max suddenly stopped. This wasn't fear or resistance. He looked James straight in the eye, searching as if asking, "Do you really understand me?" James didn't move closer or give any command. He simply waited, smiling gently. It was a silent conversation where patience and trust spoke louder than words. After the drill, James sat down beside Max, making no move to touch him, just offering his hand and letting Max decide. Max hesitated, ears up, then finally stepped forward and sniffed James's hand. It was the first time Max had reached out, a small moment, but a huge turning point in their journey toward trust. That night, under the dim tent light, James told stories about Texas, about running wild as a boy, about the loneliness of a soldier far from home. Max, no longer, stayed at the far corner. Instead, he crept closer, eyes half closed, quietly listening. Sometimes he sighed, as if he understood everything James was saying, as if he too was slowly letting down his guard. James could feel the wall between them cracking piece by piece. He whispered, "Maybe Max is just like me, just waiting for someone patient and genuine enough to let him open up." These were the first signs of a friendship about to bloom, gentle, persistent, and filled with hope, like sunrise after a long, cold night. Part 3. A Mission of Destiny, their first triumph. August 15th, 2018. At 5:47 a.m., a red alert echoed through Kandahar base. Intelligence had just spotted a Taliban supply convoy moving down Highway 1, the vital road linking military bases. A patrol of 42 soldiers was dispatched to intercept. James and Max led the way, tasked with detecting mines and IEDs that could be hidden along the route. As the Humvee convoy rolled out, the desert air was still cool from the night before. Max sat beside James, eyes locked on the road ahead. For the first time since they met, James sensed Max's complete focus. No more hesitation, no more distance, just two warriors ready to protect each other. 3 kilometers out, Max suddenly stood up, ears pricked, nose twitching. He let out a low growl, a warning James had learned to recognize. It wasn't aggression, but a serious alert. "Stop!" James signaled to the driver. The entire convoy slammed to a halt in the empty desert. Max jumped out, nose to the ground, weaving in a zigzag along the roadside. Every step was cautious, every muscle tense. After 15 tense minutes, Max stopped at a small mound of dirt, growling loudly before backing away. The bomb squad rushed in. The results stunned everyone. A massive IED was buried just beneath the sand, triggered by pressure. If the convoy had continued, 42 lives would have been lost. In the silent desert, James hugged Max tightly, tears streaming down his face. "You saved us all, Max. You're our guardian angel." Part 4. The Turning Point, Trust at Last. The third week at Kandahar base opened a completely new chapter for James and Max. That morning, the air was stifling. The distant thrum of helicopters echoed, yet inside James was a nervous anticipation he couldn't explain. As the team patrolled the perimeter, Max suddenly stopped, his whole body tense, ears perked, sharp eyes scanning every crevice. James immediately noticed the change. Max was no longer the wary, anxious stray. Instead, he radiated absolute focus, a true warrior. Max led James to an apparently harmless corner of the wall, then sat, fixing his gaze on James with a clear message. "Something's not right here." James quickly stepped back and signaled the team to halt. After a careful inspection, the bomb squad uncovered an expertly concealed improvised explosive device, something even their advanced equipment had missed. Thanks to Max's sharp instincts and courage, the entire team was spared disaster. In that moment, every eye turned to Max with overwhelming respect. Seasoned Sergeant Rodriguez clapped James on the shoulder. "Your dog just saved all our lives today." James knelt and hugged Max tightly. For the first time, Max didn't flinch, but rested his head on James's shoulder, letting out a relieved sigh. In those brown eyes shone absolute trust. That night, under the dim tent light, James whispered, "We're truly a team now, Max. Thank you for believing in me." Max let out a soft whine, not the guarded growl of the early days, but a warm, gentle sound, as if to say, "I believe in you too, James." From that moment, Max was no longer just a companion on the battlefield, but an indispensable partner on James's journey to heal his own wounds. Two once-broken souls had found each other, writing together a story of trust, perseverance, and unbreakable friendship. Chapter 3. The Silent Guardian, a Hero Without Words. Part 1. Discovering the Hidden Weapons, Cache and Rescuing the Little Girl. The sun scorched the outskirts of Kandahar, the air thick with tension and the lingering scent of gunpowder. James and Max's patrol unit was ordered to inspect a cluster of old, crumbling houses. Intelligence suspected the Taliban was hiding a weapons cache underground. It seemed like a routine mission, but Max sensed something different the moment his paws hit the ground. Moving silently, nose low, Max inspected every grain of sand and every crack in the walls. Suddenly he froze in front of a small, mud brick house with a rotting wooden door. Max's brown eyes flared with intensity, and he barked a sharp, decisive warning. James instantly signaled his team to fan out, weapons ready. Max led them behind the house. In the corner of the yard, an old mattress was carelessly thrown over a hidden hatch. Max clawed and barked, frantic. James and 2 soldiers pulled the mattress aside, revealing a narrow entrance to an underground bunker. The air below was icy, damp, and metallic. When James shined his flashlight, he was stunned. A huge cache of weapons, explosives, and crates of ammunition. But what truly shocked them was the sight of a little Afghan girl, about 7 years old, bound, terrified, her eyes wide with fear. Max leapt down, growled gently, and nuzzled her trembling hand with his nose. The girl burst into tears, not of fear, but relief. James hurried down, untied her, and lifted her out. Max never left her side for a second. As the convoy pulled away, the team and the little girl made it safely back to base. Max was hugged by everyone, hailed as a silent hero. That night, James whispered to him, "You changed a life today, Max. That's the greatest miracle of all." Part 2. Sleepless Nights. Guardian Angel on the battlefield. Night fell over the base, darkness settling over every tent, with only dim lights and the wind whistling through barbed wire. While others slept, Max quietly patrolled, eyes bright and alert, ears tuned to every sound. For Max, each night was a new challenge, a silent battle to protect the teammates he now called family. Some nights, Max didn't sleep at all. He'd lie outside the tents of soldiers haunted by nightmares. When Tommy, a young recruit, woke up in a panic, Max would gently nudge his hand, eyes full of empathy. Just having Max nearby made fears fade, bringing a rare sense of peace in a brutal world. Soldiers began to say, "With Max here, the nights feel shorter." One day, the medical convoy was preparing to leave base, transporting wounded soldiers. Tension filled the air. Max was assigned to the convoy, always alert, nose testing every breeze. As they reached a dangerous curve, Max suddenly jumped in front of the lead vehicle, barking and growling fiercely. The driver slammed on the brakes, the convoy stopped, everyone confused. Seconds later, gunfire erupted, an ambush. Thanks to Max's quick action, the convoy avoided the attack and had time to call for help. No one was hurt, and all the wounded were safe. After that, Max earned a proud new name, Guardian Angel. No one knew how he sensed danger before anyone else, but everyone believed that without Max, there would be no miracles on the battlefield. Max wasn't just a warrior. He was a symbol of silent sacrifice and a source of strength for the whole unit. That night, as everyone hugged Max, his eyes sparkled with joy. He knew he had truly become family. Chapter 4. Last Light at Kandahar, the Ultimate Sacrifice. Part 1. The Final Mission. Instinct to Save. Dawn broke over Kandahar on December 15th, 2018. The base was eerily silent, like the calm before a storm. For Max, the loyal military working dog, today wasn't just another mission. Every sense in his body was on high alert, warning of danger ahead. James, his closest companion, adjusted his pack, gently stroked Max's head, and whispered, "Just one more time, Max. Let's finish this mission, and then we're going home." At 7 a.m., the convoy carrying wounded soldiers and medical supplies rolled out. Max sat beside James, his brown eyes never leaving the roadside shadows and every rustling bush. When they reached a deserted crossroads, Max's hackles shot up. He growled then leapt from the vehicle, sprinting ahead. "Something's wrong!" James shouted, ordering the convoy to stop. Max raced straight to an old, battered truck parked awkwardly by the road, barking furiously. James and 2 soldiers approached, weapons ready. Opening the truck bed, they were stunned. 4 Taliban fighters were lying in ambush, weapons cocked, ready to unleash devastation. Thanks to Max's instincts, the entire unit managed to subdue the attackers in time, preventing a massacre. James hugged Max tightly, tears streaming down his face. "You did it again, little hero." But Max wasn't done. He kept sniffing, eyes fixed on the road ahead. His instinct screamed, the danger wasn't over yet. As the convoy moved on, the tension grew, the music builds, mirroring Max's unease. His ears stood tall, eyes scanning every grain of sand. In that moment, no one realized this was the journey that would define Max's legacy, a final act of courage that would never be forgotten. Part 2, the climax, the ultimate sacrifice. Just 200 meters from the final checkpoint, Max suddenly leapt from the vehicle, bolting ahead like an arrow. "Max, come back!" James cried out, but Max didn't stop. His eyes burned with unbreakable resolve. Before anyone could react, Max stopped in the middle of the dusty road, barking and clawing at the ground. James recognized the signal instantly. IED, a hidden bomb. He yelled for the convoy to halt, the team scrambling to back away. As the bomb squad prepared to move, a sniper's shot rang out from a ruined building. The remote detonator was triggered. A deafening explosion ripped through the air. Dust and debris filled the sky. Max, closest to the blast, was thrown aside. Without thinking, James jumped from the vehicle and ran to Max, who lay motionless, blood and dirt covering his fur. James cradled Max in his arms, tears pouring down his face. "Max, wake up! Don't leave me!" Max's breaths came shallow and slow. With his last strength, he gently licked James's hand. His eyes shone with peace, as if to say, "You're safe now." James buried his face in Max's fur, sobbing. "Thank you, my bravest friend. Without you, we wouldn't be here." The team gathered around, each placing a hand on Max, overcome with emotion. In that moment, time stood still. Max, the silent warrior, had given everything for his brothers in arms. Max became an immortal symbol of loyalty and sacrifice. The image of James holding Max in the dust will be etched forever in every heart. A story not just of war, but of friendship, courage, and unconditional love. Chapter 5. The Forgotten Hero, a Cage Called Home. Part 1. The Unsung Hero. As the plane door opened, a wave of icy winter air swept through the American military airport. Max, the war dog once so brave on the battlefields of Afghanistan, stepped onto the concrete, his fur still dusty, his sharp eyes now tinged with exhaustion. There were no cheers, no flags, no open arms waiting. All Max received was a discharge paper, then he was quietly led onto a small truck. The door slammed shut with a cold clack, a strange sound marking the start of an unwanted new chapter in his life. On his way back to America, Max had no idea his fate had changed forever. While younger, healthier service dogs were often adopted by families, or at least got a warm retirement with their old handlers, Max, 8 years old, slightly injured, and suffering from post-war syndrome, was seen as nothing more than expired equipment. The soldiers who once fought alongside Max had all left the army, scattered everywhere. No one knew when he returned, and no one was there to bring him home. The truck carrying Max rolled through endless streets, yellow lights casting long shadows on the windows. Each time the truck stopped, Max perked up his ears, hoping to hear a familiar voice. But all he got was the cold silence of strangers. He was taken to an animal rescue center on the city's outskirts, a place for dogs no one wanted anymore. The staff saw Max as a special case. A war dog, old, with an unpredictable past, who would dare adopt him? On his first day in America, Max was locked in a small cage, barely big enough to turn around. He still wore his faded military collar, but no one seemed to care. People passed by, glancing at the short note on his kennel. Max, 8 years old, served in Afghanistan. No one asked what he had been through. No one knew he had risked his life to save his entire team. At night, Max curled up in the corner of his cage, eyes wide open, staring out the tiny window, hoping for a miracle. But the shelter was silent. Only the wind howled and the dim lights flickered. Max waited quietly, not knowing that ahead lay a long road of loneliness and cold, a hero forgotten in his own homeland. And from that moment, Max's story of abandonment and pain began, touching the hearts of all who learned of his journey. Part 2. No one to adopt. Max sent to the shelter. The iron gate of Orange County Animal Shelter creaked open, marking the end of any hope Max might have had. The dog who was once the pride of his unit was now just a lonely figure, quietly stepping out of the military truck. Max's legs trembled on the cold cement, his eyes following the departing vehicle that carried away both his glorious past and his dearest friend, James. No more familiar voices, no warm embraces. All that remained were the distant barks of hundreds of other dogs, each with their own story and pain, but none seemed as deep as Max's. Sarah Martinez, a shelter worker, knelt down and gently stroked Max's head. "Welcome, little warrior." But Max didn't respond, only stared silently toward the gate, still hoping for a miracle. A sign was hung on his kennel. "Military working dog, 8 years old, served in Afghanistan. Needs an experienced family." Those cold words were like an invisible wall separating Max from the outside world. Every day, families came to visit the shelter. They stopped at Max's kennel, read the sign, then quietly moved on. Some shook their heads. "He's old and a war dog, probably hard to handle." Others looked at Max with sympathy, but left after hearing Sarah mention his nightmares and how he startled at loud noises. No one had enough patience or courage to open their heart to a dog with such a special past. At first, Max still had hope. Each time someone passed by, he would lift his head, ears perked, eyes brightening. But when they walked away, Max would curl up in the corner, quietly licking his old scars. Sarah tried to comfort him with toys and treats, but Max only sat silently by the small window, gazing out at the parking lot, still hoping that someone, his person, might return for him. A week passed, then a month. Max slowly became the invisible dog at the shelter. The staff cared for him, but they understood. For a dog with so many war memories, the road to happiness would be long. On cold nights, Max curled up in his kennel, his sad eyes waiting for a miracle he deserved, after all he had sacrificed. Part 3. Long days in the kennel, human indifference. By the third week at the shelter, Max had faded into the background. No one paid him much attention anymore. He didn't bark or wag his tail when people approached, not even lifting his head at the sound of footsteps. He just lay curled in the corner, empty eyes fixed on some faraway point, maybe memories of Afghanistan with James, or perhaps just a faint hope for a miracle. Sarah Martinez, his main caretaker, still patiently set his food bowl in front of him every day. "Max, you have to eat." But Max only glanced at her, then turned away. Beef, special dog biscuits, none could touch his closed heart. He drank just enough water to survive, but his eyes grew dimmer, like a candle about to go out. Every day, dozens of families came to the shelter, looking for a new four-legged friend. They stopped at each kennel, reading the dog's info. When they reached Max's, they saw Max, 8 years old, former military dog from Afghanistan. Some asked Sarah about him, but after hearing about his nightmares, his fear of loud noises, and his refusal to eat, they shook their heads. "We want a happy, energetic dog," they said. "Max seems too complicated." A young family with 2 children lingered by Max's kennel. The mother looked at Max with pity. He looked so sad, but the father hesitated. "War dogs often have psychological problems. We have kids, we can't take that risk." In the end, they chose a golden retriever puppy from the next kennel, the one that wagged its tail and barked happily at visitors. Max saw it all. He watched his friends leave their cages, saw the warm embraces and happy laughter. For him, only silence remained. At night, Max often woke with a start, ears pricked at the sound of helicopters or gunfire echoing from his memories. He howled in the night, unsettling the other dogs. Sarah came to comfort him, but Max just trembled, not letting anyone touch him. Time passed, and Max grew thinner. His once shiny coat became ragged, his once bright eyes clouded. Fewer and fewer visitors even noticed Max. He became the dog nobody wanted. A soldier forgotten in his own homeland. Chapter 6. When 2 wounds meet, the first spark of healing. Part 1. Tom, the soldier returning with inner wounds. On the 47th day at the rescue shelter, Max still sat motionless by the small window, his eyes lost as he gazed at the empty yard. Outside, a gentle rain fell, each drop hitting the tin roof with a steady, melancholy rhythm. For nearly 2 months, Max was no longer the strong service dog he once was. He had grown thin, his fur rough, eyes sunken, showing no interest in eating or playing. Every day, Max just waited, as if clinging to a faint hope for something to appear. But day after day, that miracle never came. The shelter staff had become used to Max's silent presence. No one expected him to be adopted anymore. "This dog doesn't eat, doesn't play, just waits. It's like he's lost hope," Sarah sighed to a co-worker as she put down his food bowl and quietly walked away. The whole shelter gradually saw Max as part of the wall, an old soul no one noticed. One damp afternoon, the shelter gate opened and Tom appeared. He wore an old military jacket, tall but with a reserved, hesitant demeanor. Tom was a veteran just returned from Afghanistan, carrying deep, invisible wounds, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Sleepless nights, nightmares, explosions, screams, and loneliness haunted Tom every time he closed his eyes. He came to the shelter not to find a friend, but to seek a bit of peace among other lost souls like himself. Tom walked along the kennels, his gaze passing over each dog. Some barked loudly, jumping and wagging their tails for attention. But Tom didn't care. He only wanted quiet, to stay away from the noise. At the end of the row, he stopped in front of Max's kennel. The old grey dog sat with his back turned, seemingly unaware of the stranger approaching. Tom quietly observed, then gently sat down outside the bars. Max smelled the stranger but didn't react. Tom didn't call out or wave. just sat there in silence. After a while, Max slowly turned his head, his eyes meeting Tom's. In that moment, between two broken souls, something deep passed between them, a wordless empathy. Tom felt his heart tighten. In those eyes he saw himself, loss, pain, fear, and despair. He remembered mornings looking in the mirror, seeing a stranger with empty eyes. I recognize that pain, the pain I used to see in the mirror every morning. I can't leave him behind, Tom choked up inside. Sarah noticed Tom lingering and approached. You like this dog? Max was a service dog served in Afghanistan. He's not easy to approach, has nightmares, is afraid of loud noises. Are you sure? Tom just nodded, eyes never leaving Max. He didn't need the warnings. He understood Max's world better than anyone. For the first time in nearly 2 months, Max stood up, slowly approaching the bars, not for food or a call, but because of an invisible pull. Empathy between two lost souls. Tom reached out his hand, not rushing or forcing. Max sniffed gently, then retreated, but his eyes were less cold. Sarah, surprised to see Max more responsive, opened the kennel for Tom to try interacting. Tom sat on the floor, keeping a respectful distance. He spoke to Max, his voice a whisper, as if afraid to break the silence. I was a soldier too and lost my best friend in Kandahar. Every night I have nightmares, never sleep peacefully. I know that feeling. Not trusting anyone, not wanting to open up. But I'll be here, waiting until you're ready. Max didn't come closer immediately, but he no longer turned his back. That night, for the first time, Max didn't curl up in the corner. He lay near the door, where he could see Tom sitting outside, quietly reading under a yellow light. It seemed a small ray of hope was flickering in both their souls, the first step in a long healing journey. Part 2. The Healing Journey. 2 souls find light again. The first week passed in suffocating silence. Max still stayed in his corner, eyes avoiding all contact, only eating a little when Tom wasn't near. Tom didn't push or force Max to come close, just quietly existed, reading, making tea, or sitting by the window watching the rain. In that silence, both gradually felt a wordless empathy. Wounds, fears, and the feeling of abandonment. On the 8th night, Tom awoke from another nightmare. Cold sweat soaked his forehead, his heart pounding as war memories flooded back. He sat breathing heavily, trying to hold back tears. In the darkness, Tom heard the soft sound of claws on the floor. Max, still cautious, approached, step by step, as if afraid to startle Tom. He stopped, lying at a distance just close enough for both to sense each other's presence. "Can't sleep either?" Tom whispered, not turning around. Max didn't answer, but his breathing grew steadier, as if Tom's presence soothed him. From that night, Max began sleeping closer to Tom's bed, not right next to him, but no longer curled up in the farthest corner. In the second week, Tom decided to try something new. He spread a small blanket near the bed, then sat on the floor and started telling Max about James, the friend who saved his life in Kandahar. James was the only one who understood me there. He used to say when we got home, we'd open a garage together. But James couldn't come home anymore. Tom's voice broke. Max lifted his head, looking Tom in the eye for the first time. In that gaze, Tom saw deep empathy. Max, too, had lost someone dear, had felt the guilt of surviving. On the 15th day, a small miracle happened. Tom was reading when Max approached him, sitting just a meter away. For the first time, Max didn't turn away when Tom looked at him. Their eyes met. a soldier and a war dog, both carrying invisible scars. "You trust me now, don't you?" Tom said softly. Max didn't wag his tail or bark, but he didn't leave. That was his answer. From then on, Max began to eat more, stopped skipping meals. He still didn't play, but started following Tom around the house, always keeping a safe distance. When Tom cooked, Max sat in the kitchen corner watching. When Tom watched TV, Max lay on the rug, not too close, but not too far. Every night, Tom continued sharing stories, pain, memories, and small hopes for a better tomorrow. On the 20th night, both awoke to thunder. Tom trembled, Max shrank back. This time, Tom didn't hide his fear. He sat up and reached out to Max. "Come here, let's get through this together." Max hesitated, then slowly came closer. For the first time in 3 weeks, Max let Tom touch him. Chapter 7. Back to James, a promise and a new mission. Part 1. A promise kept. The first journey to Arlington Cemetery. At the break of dawn, Tom quietly prepared for a special journey, the one he had promised Max from the very first day they met. In the small room, Max curled up by the window, his eyes shimmering with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Tom gently stroked Max's head and whispered, "Today we're going to see James." That sentence was like a signal. Max lifted his head, ears perked up, eyes sparkling more than usual. Tom carefully packed a bouquet of white flowers into his backpack, along with Max's favorite food and an old scarf of James's that he still kept. He opened the car door and Max hesitantly climbed in, sitting quietly in the passenger seat. The air in the car was thick with anticipation. Neither of them spoke much, just the soft music from the radio and Max's steady breathing. The journey from Denver to Virginia took hours. Through the window, the scenery changed constantly. Golden fields, lush green forests, and tree-lined roads dappled with sunlight. Every now and then, Tom would tell Max stories about James, about their days in Afghanistan, about nights when the whole squad gathered around the campfire, and about how James always saved Max the warmest corner of his blanket. Max listened silently, his eyes gazing outside but occasionally glancing at Tom, as if he too was reminiscing. Each time Tom mentioned James, Max would gently wag his tail, a small gesture, but enough for Tom to know that Max understood and felt the same. When they finally reached the gates of Arlington Cemetery, Tom could feel his heart pounding. He led Max out, took a deep breath to steady himself. The cemetery stretched out before them, thousands of pristine white headstones, stone-paved walkways, and a tranquil, solemn atmosphere. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and the rustling of ancient trees. Tom gripped the leash firmly. Max walked slowly beside him, nose sniffing the air as if searching for something familiar. "James is in section 60, row 8, Tom muttered, eyes scanning his note. But Max didn't need directions. He began leading Tom through the rows of graves, sometimes stopping to sniff at a headstone, then moving on. Finally, Max stopped in front of a white headstone, engraved with James Michael Rodriguez, Sergeant, U.S. Army, Afghanistan. Tom froze, tears filling his eyes. He knelt down, placed the white bouquet on the grave, and gently unclipped Max's leash. Without a word, Max walked up, sat beside the headstone, and rested his head gently on the cold stone. The world fell silent, just the whisper of wind, distant bird song, and Max's soft breathing. In that moment, Tom knew he had kept his promise, bringing Max back to his beloved friend, so both could begin to heal. Part 2, the reunion moment, Max, beside James's grave. That morning, the sky over. Arlington was an unusually clear blue, a soft breeze rustling through the ancient shaded trees. Tom parked at the cemetery gate, turned to Max, and offered a gentle smile, a silent encouragement. Max stepped out, a bit hesitant, but his eyes now held warmth instead of the lost look they once had. The two friends walked quietly along the stone path into the cemetery. Rows of pristine white headstones stretched out in perfect lines, each one a story, a memory that would never fade. Tom led Max slowly, both silent, only the sound of wind through the leaves and their soft footsteps on the grass. Max sniffed the air, ears perked, as if searching for something familiar in the hush. Suddenly, Max stopped. He tugged gently at the leash, heading toward a small headstone inscribed, "James Carter, faithful companion." Tom froze, his heart tightening. This was where James, his best friend and Max's former owner, rested. Max didn't hesitate. He moved forward, gently rested his head on the cold stone. His whole body trembled, not with fear, but with emotion. Max lay quietly, eyes closed, as if listening to the heartbeat of the past. Tom watched in silence. He sat down beside Max, placing a hand on his back, feeling the warmth and slow, steady breathing. Around them, birds sang in the distance, the wind through the trees creating a gentle soundtrack for this sacred moment. Tom whispered, "You're back with James now, Max. But you still have family here. We'll go on together for James too." Max gently wagged his tail, a small gesture that made Tom's throat tighten with emotion. For the first time since James's passing, Max was willing to eat again. Tom opened his bag, took out some food, and Max slowly savored each bite, as if every mouthful was a farewell, a step forward. In his eyes, the sadness softened, replaced by a rare peace. They sat together for hours, neither saying anything more. Tom quietly placed a small bouquet on James's grave. Then he and Max leaned against each other, sharing both pain and hope. When the sun was high, they finally stood up, ready for the next journey. As they left the cemetery, Tom could see a change in Max's eyes, no longer clouded with sorrow, but filled with warmth, trust, and a hint of excitement for the future. Max had not only found James again, but had found himself, ready to move forward with Tom toward a new mission. Part 3. New mission. Max becomes a therapy dog. After the journey to Arlington Cemetery, a quiet but profound change began to take place in Max. Tom started to notice how Max responded whenever he encountered people who seemed sad or anxious. Max would quietly approach, sit by their side, and look at them with gentle, understanding eyes, as if he wanted to share their pain. This sensitivity reminded Tom of stories James used to tell about Max's special training. One night, Tom dug through the old files James had sent home from the battlefield and discovered something. Max had originally been trained to become a therapy dog for soldiers with PTSD, but after James's death, he'd never fulfilled that mission. Tom sat down next to Max, gently stroking his head. "We can help people like us, Max, people who need a friend who really understands them." Max looked up, his eyes shining with empathy and determination. That was the moment Tom knew they were ready for a new journey. Tom contacted the local veterans hospital and suggested that Max try the role of therapy dog. At first, the doctors were hesitant, but Tom patiently explained Max's training and his special sensitivity. After a brief assessment, the hospital agreed to let Max join the mental health therapy program. On their very first visit, Tom and Max were brought to the room of Mr. Robert, an elderly veteran with silver hair who hadn't slept well in months due to war trauma. Max entered the room slowly, calmly, walked over, and sat at just the right distance from Mr. Robert. Max's eyes met his with pure compassion, no judgment, no pressure. After a few minutes of silence, Mr. Robert gently waved. "Come here, boy." Max went over and rested his head on Mr. Robert's lap. Mr. Robert broke down in tears, the first tears he'd shed after years of holding them in. That night, he slept a full 8 hours, something he thought was impossible. Word about Max spread quickly in the hospital. Other veterans began to look forward to their turn to meet him. Some, like Mr. Martinez, who used to be overwhelmed by loud noises, felt calm when Max was near. Others, like young veteran Sarah, who hadn't been able to connect with anyone for 2 years, found herself able to pet Max and even smile for the first time since coming home. Tom watched these moments, his own heart slowly healing. He realized that Max was not only fulfilling the mission James had entrusted to him, but was also bringing hope to so many who had lost faith in life. Every afternoon after leaving the hospital, Max might be tired, but his eyes always sparkled, and his tail wagged gently, as if to say, "We did it." And so Max and Tom's new journey spread throughout the veteran community. They became a special duo, an inspiration for many who had suffered. Max was no longer just a rescued dog. He was a rescuer, a silent angel bringing peace to deeply wounded souls. Chapter 8. From Patient to Beacon, The Rise of an Icon. Part 1. Arlington Cemetery Memories, the beginning of a healing journey. That morning, the sky over Washington, D.C. was an unusually clear blue, with gentle golden sunlight filtering through the ancient trees shading Arlington Cemetery. Tom parked at the main gate, his hands trembling as he held the keys, glancing over at Max, quietly sitting in the back seat. Max's eyes still looked somber, but today there was something different, a faint glimmer of hope, like the dawn after a long, dark night. "We're going to see James, Max," Tom whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I promised you, remember?" Max looked at Tom, his ears perking up ever so slightly. The first sign that he was listening, that he understood. The two friends got out of the car, and Tom carefully clipped the leash onto Max's collar. This time, Max didn't resist as he had before. Instead, he quietly followed, each step gentle on the stone path leading deeper into the cemetery. The air was both solemn and warm, filled with memories and longing. Hundreds of white headstones lined up in perfect rows, each one a story, a life. Tom led Max slowly, his heart swelling with indescribable emotion. Each step brought back memories of James, his close friend, the one who had braved hardships by his side, and Max's former owner. Memories of the battlefield, of laughter and tears, of promises left unfulfilled, all came flooding back. Suddenly Max stopped. He gently tugged the leash, heading toward a small headstone engraved with the words, "James Carter, faithful comrade." Tom froze, tears welling up. Max approached without hesitation, gently resting his head on the cold stone. His whole body trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. Tom sat down beside him, placing his hand on Max's back, feeling the slow, steady breathing and the warmth spreading through his fingers. Time seemed to stand still. Around them, only the soft rustle of the wind, distant bird song, and the quiet sorrow of two wounded souls. Max lay still, eyes closed, as if sensing James's presence, sending his final farewell. Tom whispered, "You're back with James now, Max?" but you still have family here. We'll keep living on for James too." Suddenly, Max gently wagged his tail, a small gesture, but full of meaning. Tom choked up, realizing that for the first time since James's passing, Max was willing to eat again. He took out some food from his bag, and Max slowly savored each bite as if every morsel was a goodbye, a step forward. In Max's eyes, the sadness seemed to soften, replaced by a strange peace. The two friends sat together for hours, saying nothing more. Tom quietly placed a small bouquet on James's grave, then sat shoulder to shoulder with Max, sharing both pain and new hope. When the sun was high, they stood up, ready for the next journey. As they left the cemetery, Tom could feel the change in Max's eyes, no longer clouded but warm, trusting, and with a hint of excitement for the future. Max had not only found James again, but had found himself ready to move forward with Tom toward a new mission. Part 2, Recovery Stories, Max's Power with Veterans. Max gradually became a familiar symbol at the Veterans Medical Center. Every time Tom brought Max through the doors, the hospital atmosphere seemed to soften. Many who had once been withdrawn and cold now eagerly awaited the special dog's visits. Max wasn't just a therapy dog, he was a silent companion, helping veterans rediscover themselves. Michael, an Afghanistan veteran with severe PTSD, was the first person Max connected with. Michael usually sat silently in a corner, staring into space, his shoulders hunched, as if carrying the weight of the world. Nightmares left him nearly sleepless, his mood always tense, ready to snap at any moment. Yet on their very first meeting, something miraculous happened. Max didn't rush in, he simply sat quietly beside Michael, his gentle eyes focused on him. After a few minutes, Michael sighed, then instinctively reached out to stroke Max's head. "Just having Max sit beside me, I feel heard. He doesn't judge, doesn't ask questions. He's just there," Michael shared, his voice deeper but noticeably warmer than before. Sarah, a former army nurse who lost her best friend in an explosion, lived in isolation, having lost trust in everyone. Doctors tried to reach her but failed. When Max was brought in, he sat at a distance, looking at her with compassionate eyes. 10 minutes passed in silence before Sarah softly asked, "You're not afraid of me?" Max wagged his tail, moved closer, and rested his head on her lap. Sarah broke down in tears, the first time in months she'd let her emotions out. "There are patients we can't reach, but Max can. He knows how to make them feel safe," Sarah later told Tom, her eyes shining with hope. David, a veteran who lost both legs in an explosion, always felt worthless. He rejected all contact, often lashing out at the medical staff. But Max didn't give up. One afternoon, Max jumped onto the hospital bed, lay close to David, and rested his head on his arm. David tensed, then gradually relaxed, tears streaming down his cheeks. When Max put his head on my arm, I didn't feel disabled anymore. I felt like I was still a warrior, David emotionally recounted in an interview. Max didn't just inspire patients, he became a source of hope for the medical team too. Dr. Martinez shared emotionally, "We've worked with many therapy dogs, but Max is different. He can sense each person's pain, knows when to approach and when to keep his distance. That's a special gift. Real-life footage. Max sitting quietly beside depressed soldiers, wagging his tail when a patient smiles for the first time, running around the hospital yard with veterans during outdoor therapy sessions. Every moment is proof of Max's miraculous healing power." Tom grew more and more proud of Max. He realized that not only were the veterans healing, but he and Max were also overcoming their own darkness together. Each recovery story was a brick in the bridge of hope, connecting wounded souls. Max had found new meaning in life, not just as one who was saved, but as one who saves others. Part 3. Max becomes an icon. Recognition and spreading hope. 6 months after Max started his work as a therapy dog, his story reached far beyond the walls of the Veterans Hospital. Max was no longer just a rescue dog. He had become a true symbol of resilience, compassion, and the healing power for invisible wounds left by war. Videos of Max flooded social media, receiving thousands of shares, heartfelt comments, and messages of gratitude from all over the world every single day. People called Max the four-legged hero, a small miracle in everyday life. One early autumn morning, Tom received an invitation from General Patricia Williams, director of the National Veterans Medical Center. The letter read, "Max has changed the lives of so many veterans. We wish to honor him with the Medal of Outstanding Service for Animals." Tom was speechless, emotions overflowing. He looked at Max, the same dog who once trembled in the shadows, now basking in the morning sun on the porch. "We deserve this, Max," Tom whispered, stroking Max's golden fur. The award ceremony was held with great honor at the White House, attended by the president, journalists, veteran representatives, and hundreds of guests. Max walked confidently onto the stage, his coat gleaming, posture proud. When the medal was placed around his neck, Max lifted his head high, his eyes sparkling as if he understood. This moment belonged to him, and to all those who had ever been wounded, yet never stopped hoping. Thunderous applause filled the room. Many were moved to tears, seeing themselves in Max's journey from loss and pain to recovery and the spreading of love. The president proclaimed, "Max is living proof of the indomitable spirit of our veterans. He inspires not only those who served, but everyone facing life's toughest battles." From that day, Max became the face of the Pause for Heroes program, a nationwide initiative to train therapy dogs for veterans. Max's image appeared on posters, websites, seminars, and media campaigns. Wherever Tom and Max went, from hospitals and schools to community events, they left a deep and lasting impression. Children gathered around Max, listening to his story of overcoming sadness to bring hope. One little boy whispered, "I want Max to visit my grandpa so he can smile more." Max's impact didn't stop there. Thousands found hope through letters and messages inspired by his story. A young mother from Texas wrote, "After watching Max's videos, my son, a veteran with PTSD, agreed to go to therapy and started opening up to our family." An elderly veteran in California wrote, "I thought I was useless, but Max showed me I can still bring joy to others." At the end of each day, Tom and Max returned to their cozy home in Denver, sitting together on the porch, quietly watching the sunset. Tom softly said, "We've come so far, Max. From darkness, you've become a light for so many." Max wagged his tail, resting his head on Tom's shoulder, a silent promise that their journey of spreading hope would continue, one paw print at a time, one simple miracle after another. That's the spirit of the Paw Print family. Chapter 9. Legacy of a Silent Angel, 200 Hearts Mended. Part 1. Max's Legacy, 200 plus lives healed. Max, the silent hero of over 200 veterans. After 2 years accompanying Tom at the Veterans Medical Center, Max had become a familiar name not just to the patients, but to the entire team of doctors and nurses. No one could have imagined that a dog who was once abandoned, scared, and lost would become a symbol of resilience and healing. Every morning when Max appeared with his golden fur and gentle eyes, the whole space seemed to brighten. Many veterans who used to be withdrawn and reluctant to communicate now eagerly awaited seeing Max, because just a wag of his tail or a gentle look from him could ease their pain. Max was more than just a therapy dog. He was a source of encouragement, a companion, a ray of light at the end of the tunnel for over 200 veterans who had once lost hope. There were those who wanted to give up everything, but thanks to Max, they gradually found meaning in life again. Michael, an Afghanistan veteran, shared, "Just having Max sit beside me, I feel heard. He doesn't judge, doesn't ask questions. He's just there when I need him." Sarah, a former army nurse who had suffered great loss, burst into tears the first time Max rested his head on her lap. "Max helped me feel alive again, even if it was just from a tail wag." David, who lost both legs in the war, said through tears, "He didn't just save me, he saved my whole family. Thanks to Max, I learned to open up to my wife and children, learned to live with what I have instead of mourning what I've lost." The atmosphere at the center changed day by day. Hospital rooms that were once silent and heavy now echoed with laughter. The doctors and nurses felt the difference too. Max did what medicine couldn't, heal the deepest wounds of the soul. More than 200 lives were touched by Max, each person a story, a small miracle, all contributing to the wonderful legacy of this special dog. Part 2, Emotional Climax. Max is honored. One November afternoon, the grand hall of the military base was lit brightly with a solemn atmosphere all around. Hundreds of veterans, families, doctors, and military officials quietly waited for a special moment, the ceremony honoring Max. From an abandoned dog, Max had become the silent hero of over 200 veterans, a symbol of perseverance, loyalty, and hope. Tom led Max onto the stage. Max, now older with a touch of grey in his fur, still had bright eyes. Colonel Williams approached and solemnly pinned the Medal of Honor for four-legged warriors around Max's neck. Max stood tall, head held high, as if he understood the meaning of this moment. The stage lights shone on his golden fur, making the medal gleam even brighter. The applause was thunderous. Many veterans couldn't hold back their tears. Michael bowed his head in gratitude. Sarah hugged her daughter and whispered, "That's the dog who saved Mommy." David, sitting in his wheelchair, clapped loudly, a radiant smile on his face. The veterans who once felt hopeless now stood up, honoring the friend who had changed their lives. In the front row, Mrs. Williams, the mother of a veteran who had taken his own life before ever meeting Max, quietly shed tears. She thought of her son, of what might have been different if Max had come into his life sooner. But now she was proud to see Max saving other mothers' children. Tom took the microphone, his voice choked with emotion. Max is not just a dog. He's a symbol of hope, proof that love and loyalty can change lives. From an abandoned dog, Max has become a hero to hundreds of families. He taught us that no matter how hard your beginnings, with love and perseverance, anyone can create miracles. The camera zoomed in on Max's face, warm brown eyes, the gleaming medal on his chest, and a gentle smile. This wasn't just the end of a journey, but the beginning of an immortal legacy. Max wagged his tail as if sending a message. My mission continues. Do you believe that one abandoned dog can save 200-plus veterans? If Max can change 200 lives, what will you do to help other dogs? If this story touches you, Comment the name of the dog that changed your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the Paw Print Family channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next touching stories. Help us reach 500 subscribers to continue spreading hope to more dogs and people.